Hello, freak bitches.
That's my fundamental orientation, and so, or my fundamental concern. I mean, I don't expect people to be 100% honest because, of course, who is? You know, I mean, that's a hell of a high standard to hold anyone to. But all of that is smoke and mirrors, and I think the people who are after me know it.
But let's get through some of that then, yeah. just to sort of establish it for people maybe that don't know. What issues do you have any issue whatsoever with someone being transgender?
No, I don't have any issue with that. What I have an issue with is that I don't like to see the postmodern neo-Marxists use the transsexual issue as a lever for pushing forward their political nonsense. And I said that right from the beginning in the videos I made to begin with. The reason I wouldn't use the words Z and Zer and all those other made-up words, however many there are now, is because I'm not willing to cede the linguistic territory to postmodern radicals. I'm not doing that. And they say, well, we're doing it on behalf of the oppressed transsexual people. And I think, yeah, well, that's what you say, but there's no reason I should believe that. I don't believe anything you say. I think you're contemptible, cowardly, ideologically motivated, cult-like corruptors of the youth. So why would I use your language?
Well, let's unpack that, because one of the things that I find fascinating is how few transgender people want to use those words. The transgender people seem to want to identify with whatever gender they like. If you are a male to female transgender person, you would prefer to be called a she,
right?
Like Caitlyn Jenner, right?
Right.
And pretty much everybody calls the artist formerly known as Bruce Jenner Caitlyn Jenner, right? That's just like if you had a look at how many people just openly accept that, it's pretty well accepted, right? Mm-hmm. Most transgender people prefer that. They prefer female to male. They prefer to be a man now. I'm a man now. Okay, Bob, Dick, whatever your name is. There's not a lot of Z-Zer talk.
Well,
maybe I'm out of the loop.
No, you're not out of the loop. The other thing is those are all third-person pronouns. It's like I'm not going to call you a third-person pronoun while we're sitting here. I never would. If I'm referring to you when I'm talking to someone else,
call their name, right?
Well, I could use your name. I might use he then, but I don't know. Well, it's just all of it is palpably absurd. I think it's always hard to get the level of analysis for this sort of issue correct. You know, because the people who are pushing it forward say, well, we're against harassment and discrimination, and they attribute all the moral virtue to themselves. But then what I see is that they're utilizing a group, a very small minority group, who already have enough problems, in my estimation, for nothing other than straightforward political purposes. I don't buy the warm-hearted, all-inclusive love that the people who are pushing this sort of thing forward claim to display. I don't see that at all. What I see mostly is resentment and the desire to undermine. And I'm quite familiar with the postmodern philosophy, not as familiar as I could be, and also reasonably familiar with its underlying Marxism. And there's nothing touchy-feely about any of that, I can tell you. The postmodernists, the best you can do with postmodernist philosophy is emerge nihilistic. That's the best. The worst case is that you're a kind of anarchical social revolutionary that's directionless, except that you want to tear things apart. Or that you end up depressed, which I see happening to students all the time, because the postmodernists like rip out the remaining structures of their foundations, of their ethical foundations.
So just to be really clear for anybody tuning in, your issues are absolutely not with someone who identifies with a gender other than their biological gender.
As long as they're not using that to promote a political agenda. But I don't care about the gender thing. I mean, that's
doesn't mean anything.
Well, it's a personal
preference.
It's a personal issue,
right?
You know?
Personal issue.
It's a personal issue, and I would also deal with it on an individual-to-individual basis.
Because it varies just as much as there are extremely masculine men, extremely feminine women, and there's a broad spectrum of human beings in between, and each one should be dealt with on an individual basis.
Yes.
Based on what they want. But when you're talking about these made-up words, what it seems like is that some people are trying to push these made-up words and turn them mainstream. Now, the question is, what's the motivation behind that? Is this a necessary thing? Are there so many people that are of asexual or of some sort of I mean, what would be a Z or a Zer? What is that supposed to be? Is that supposed to be a male or a female? Is it supposed to be asexual? Or is it supposed to be a nonconformist? I mean, what is it?
Well, it's supposed to be someone whose gender isn't specified, right? Who's neither male nor female.
Right,
or maybe they say technically in the policy guidelines is anywhere or nowhere on the spectrum. And that's actually in the policy guidelines in Ontario.
Anywhere or nowhere.
Right, and the nowhere. I mean, these are policies that are going to determine law, right? That within which the law is going to be interpreted. I don't even know what nowhere on the spectrum means. I don't understand what that means.
It doesn't mean anything. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. So you have. So here's the options, right? There's someone who identifies with the opposite gender of their biological birth. So there's a man, for instance, who identifies as a woman. Everyone's cool with that. Whatever your name is, whatever you would like to be called, whether it's Wendy or Mike or whatever it is, that would be the noise that you want people to make with their mouth that means you. That's it, right? Now, whether you're a he or a she outside of that, that's where things get squirrely. So third person is the only issue. The only issue is, like, say if we were talking to Jamie. Jamie just decided he's going to be Jamie now. He's still Jamie. Jamie's a girl's name, too. I know girls named Jamie. So he could be Jamie, and Jamie decides he's a woman. And now he wants to be called she. And we're like, okay, she. All right, Jamie, now you're she. But when it gets to, like, Zer and Z and the 78 different gender pronouns, it seems to a person outside of it, a person who's cisgendered, it seems pretty bizarre. And it seems pretty preposterous, and it seems pretty indulgent, and it seems like there's something else going on. And this is
that's the thing. It's the something else going on part that is what concerns me. There is something else going on. If there wasn't something else going on, a relatively obscure professor's amateurish YouTube videos on a relatively obscure piece of Canadian legislation wouldn't have had any effect, right? It would have just disappeared, but it didn't. And that's because there's more going on than the straightforward issue surrounding the pronoun use, and everybody knows it, or everybody feels it at least.
Well, what it seems like from someone who's outside of academia, someone like me, is it seems like you're pushing back against something that they are really trying hard to establish, and that it's some kind of control. It's some kind of control with how people behave and communicate, and it's not like a societal thing. It's a very small, isolated group of people that seem to be trying to indoctrinate others into their ways. And they're becoming very vocal and very angry and, in a sense, like verbally violent about your opposition to their controlling the way that other people communicate.
Yeah, well, they don't like me poking holes in their ideology. And